There were a few problems on the review worksheet I wanted to go over with you, just so you are clear on how we handle these things. When you have imaginary numbers with a square root that has a negative under the radical, go ahead and take care of that imaginary number before you do anything else to it, including multiplying. So don't just multiply two numbers together and make it positive and then forget about the imaginary part of it. So you can't do that. So, for example, for this problem, I'm going to take care of the imaginary part. And that gives me 10i, because 100 has a square root, and then minus 9i. Well, if these were x's, I would go 10x minus 9x is equal to x. And so I'm going to do the same thing with I. And so this is your answer. Now let's say that I'm multiplying it. The temptation is to multiply these, get rid of the negatives, and then reduce. You can't do that, so don't even try. So you have to take care of the imaginary part of it first, and then you're going to multiply. So in this case, we would have 10i times 9i, which is 90i squared, and since I squared is equal to negative 1, this would be negative 90. Now for this problem, number 20, we're going to rationalize, and it has both imaginary and irrational. But we're going to handle it the same way. We're going to multiply by the conjugate, like this. And remember, when you're multiplying by the conjugate, you need to distribute everything from the left side into the right side, so don't forget that. So we've got 10 plus 5i square root 5. And the conjugate, the inside and outside, cancel, so we're going to multiply the 2's, which is 4. Multiply the i's, I squared, and then the 5. So, like this. So what this gives us is 10 plus 5i square root 5 over 4 plus 5, because this is a negative 1. And our answer is 10 plus 5i square root 5 over 9. And that's as far as we need to go, and you can leave it like that. Okay, this next one, some of you may call it a trick question, and maybe it is. Okay, you always want to isolate your radical. So square root is equal to negative 5. Now let's take a look at this and think about it for a minute. Yes, you can take the square root of a number and get a negative. However, is it possible to square something and get a negative? The answer to that is no, unless it's a non-real answer. So let's keep solving this and see what happens. So we're going to square both sides, and that's going to give us x minus 3 is equal to 25. So x is 28. Now, I've been telling you guys for a while, you need to check, and this is an example that is proof of why you need to check. So I'm going to substitute 28 back in for x in my original problem. Is that equal to 0? Well, we'll see. So 25 plus 5. Okay, now if we were taking the square root of a variable, we could say plus and minus, but we're not. We're taking the square root of a number, so we can only have plus. These are not equal. Therefore, there is no solution at all, not even imaginary. Alright, we haven't worked a lot of problems with imaginary numbers, but this particular problem has an imaginary solution. So I'm going to start by subtracting 20, and I'm going to divide by 4. And then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So square root. Well, look at that. that's imaginary. But only the negative can come out, so x is equal to plus or minus I square root 5. And this is a non-real solution, but it is a solution. And you can substitute this back in and check. So why don't we check the negative one? And we'll put the negative I square root 5. And see if we add those together, if we get a 20. Or we get a 0, actually, right here. 0. So what we have is 4. Now we're going to distribute this 2 to the negative. That makes a plot positive. But we also need to distribute the 2 to the I. And distributing the square to the square root of 5, that just gives us a 5 right here. And then this gives us a negative. So negative 20 plus 20 is equal to 0. And we're going to get the same answer regardless of which one of these we use. So this is our answer. So I thought a few of these would be helpful to you in preparing for your test.